Good morning. We have our quorum. Kim, if you would please call the roll.
Senator Douglas. Here. Senator Southworth.
Here.
Senator Yates. Representative Bowling.
Here.
Representative Hart.
Here.
Representative Mentor. Representative Cook.
Here.
Chairman Meredith.
Present. So we do have a quorum. If you allow me, please, to deviate from our agenda just slightly, I'd like to take a moment and ask us to offer a silent prayer to those who have lost their lives in eastern Kentucky and those folks who are still dealing with the aftermath of that. So if you would, please, a moment of silence. Thank you, and our thoughts and prayers do continue to go out to those folks. It'll be a long recovery, and God bless them all. First item on the agenda is consideration of the minutes of the July 14th meeting of the committee. Motion by Representative. Oh, we got an enthusiastic group this morning. I'm not sure I can even keep up. I know the motion was made by Representative Bowling. Kim, pick anybody, okay? Senator Douglas. Thank you. So we do have a motion second. So Kim, please call the roll.
Senator Douglas. Senator Southworth.
Aye.
Senator Yates. Representative Bowling.
Yes.
Representative Hart.
Yes.
Representative Mentor.
Yes.
Representative Cook.
Yes. Chairman
Meredith.
Aye. Motion carries. Total number of items on the agenda today, 215 in the amount of $115,229,647. All vendors are registered with the Secretary of State's office. Next is the third list, which is from the July PSC amendment list. If representatives are here, please identify yourself for the record.
My name is Brian Thomas, General Counsel of the Finance Administration Cabinet.
Hillary Daly, Deputy Commissioner for the Kentucky Department of Corrections.
Appreciate you joining us, and this is a follow-up from last month. Senator Southworth has questions.
Thank you. Now that we've been able to see what exactly the contract is, my question is, we have an increase in funds here, but I know over the past couple of years it's been pretty well publicized that our inmate population has gone down quite a bit. I'm wondering if this increased cost is because inmates are just using more drugs, or is this we actually don't have less inmates, or drug costs are inflating, or what's the explanation?
I would say it's a combination of the increased cost due to manufacturer pricing with pharmaceuticals and the different healthcare needs of our inmate population.
So they are using more drugs and drugs cost more.
It could be a combination of both. I would have to review the detailed billing from each month. Our costs do vary. Some of it is based on the population numbers, which is still down. However, we can't predict what the healthcare needs of the inmate population will be at any given time. We treat cancer, HIV, Hep C, a variety of healthcare needs of our population.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? If not, entertain a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Co-Chair Cook, seconded by Representative Bowling. All those in favor of the motion vote aye. All opposed will vote no. Kim, please call the roll.
Senator Douglas. Senator Southworth.
Aye.
Senator Yates. Representative Bowling.
Yes, and I'd like to explain my vote. I do this same type of, in my other work as a business owner, do this same type of work for kind of long-term care facilities in the pharmacy industry. And I've looked at this contract myself, and we cannot get anywhere close on the price of drugs that Diamond Drug gets to. So although we do see an increase, a lot of those like hepatitis medicines, medications, a lot of those that are brand name have continued to go up and up and up. You see more of that in that population. And I know the state's getting a good deal on this, so I vote yes. Thank you.
Representative Hart.
Yes.
Representative Mentor.
Yes.
Representative Cook.
Yes.
Chairman Meredith.
Aye, motion carries. And Representative Bowling, I appreciate your explanation of your vote and the additional detail. Great deal of confidence in this contract. I appreciate that. And folks, thank you for being with us this morning. Next order of business, consideration of the agenda, including the corrections list, the deferred list, personal service contract list, PSC amendment list, memorandum of agreement list, memorandum of agreement amendment list, and Kentucky Entertainment Incentive Program agreement list, except for those items selected for further review. Do we have a motion to consider the contracts review without objection?
Second.
Motion by Co-Chair Cook, seconded by Representative Mentor. All those in favor of the motion vote aye. All opposed vote no. Kim, please call the row.
Senator Douglas. Senator Southworth.
Aye.
Senator Yates. Representative Bowling.
Yes.
Representative Hart. Representative Mentor.
Yes.
Representative Cook.
Yes.
Chairman Meredith.
Aye. Motion carries. First item on the pull list with Western Kentucky University is number 60 on the routine PSC green list. If representatives are here, please identify yourself for the record.
Good morning. This is Jennifer Smith, Executive Director of Government and External Relations with WKU. And with me is Les Forsyth. I'll let Les introduce himself.
Hi, this is Les Forsyth, Senior Associate Athletic Director for Western Kentucky University.
Thank you both for joining us this morning, and I request this contract be pulled, and I'll apologize to you because I don't think there's anything that you folks can do or explain probably that's going to change my position on this. This is a long-standing issue that I've had that I just don't want to see us do business with companies that are based out of California because of their boycott of our economy based on legislation we passed, I believe, back in 2018. So I really don't know that I have any specific questions other than just to register my objection that I don't want to improve any contracts from California until they reverse their position on this. But I guess I could ask, is there any other vendor that could provide these services?
For the committee, thank you for allowing us to speak on this. The contract, as you guys can see, is facilitated, I guess, through their corporate office in California. They have branches all throughout the United States. All of our correspondence is with their branch based out of Nashville, and they provide the services listed there for us on game day. And all of that workforce comes from the state of Kentucky and the state of Tennessee and a little bit in over in Indiana. So although they are based in California, there's nobody on our campus working that is from the state of California.
I appreciate that, but eventually all the dollars flow uphill, and the money will eventually go to the corporate offices in California, and that's my objection. Again, I have no issue with the quality of services that are rendered. It's just this philosophical difference that we have, but I don't want to belabor the point. Is there a motion to approve the contract?
So moved.
Motion by Representative Mentor. Is there a second? There's a second by Co-Chair Cook to approve contract number 60 on the routine PSC list. All those in favor vote aye. All opposed vote no. Kim, please call the roll.
Senator Douglas. Senator Southworth.
No.
Senator Yates. Representative Bowling.
Yes.
Representative Hart.
No.
Representative Mentor.
Yes, and briefly explain my vote.
Please.
CSC does an excellent job with game day admissions, regulation of traffic around the stadium. So thank you very much for using such a good vendor that makes it an orderly and pleasant experience.
Representative Cook.
Yes.
Chairman Meredith.
No. What's vote count? 4 yes, 3 no. Contract fails. The contract will go to finance for final disposition, and if precedent stays in place, probably they will overrule our decision. So we will. Excuse me, a little procedural technicality here. Inasmuch as the motion was not approved, we need a motion to disapprove the contract. Is there a motion to disapprove? Being done, then I'll go back to my original premise, is this will go to finance for final disposition. They will note that we have disapproved the contract, and they will make the final decision as to whether this contract goes forward or not. But again, I just want to say it's not a reflection on the service of this company. It's this philosophical difference that we have. And Mr. Forsythe and Ms. Smith, appreciate y'all joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Technically, we didn't disapprove the contract since there was a motion. It's just there'll be no action on the contract, so it'll move forward. Next item is number 16 on our PSC list. It's the Office of Secretary of Personnel. Representatives are here. Please identify yourself for the record.
Yes, good morning. I'm Mary Elizabeth Bailey, Commissioner of the Department of Human Resources Administration for the Personnel Cabinet.
Ms. Bailey, don't know whether you were privy to the previous conversation about contract number 60, but my objection is the same with your contract, that it's a California-based corporation, and I'll always be opposed to any contract from California until they change their position on boycotting boycotting our economy. Are there any questions, other committee members? Senator Southworth, you have a question.
Yes, so a couple months ago, we talked about, I think it was over $1 million, if not more than that, to Korn Ferry, and we talked about having used them for, I think, 50 years. And this contract apparently was previously $80,000, and we're adding $200 to it, so it's not the same one that we approved just a few months ago. So this means we have multiple contracts with Korn Ferry, and I'm trying to get a handle on what's the difference between the services that we're talking about here, where I'm almost positive we just approved a review of all job classifications or 300 or whatever it was, but I need clarification on how this is different and why we need more money now a couple months later.
First contract was for $80,000, and that is our standard contract that we have with them to provide training to any new staff that we might have, and to do any type of consultation that we may need, any type of assistance on maybe a specific job review at that time. It's not $80,000 that we necessarily are spending. We have that if we need that. Again, we can't predict when we might have a vacancy in staffing, so we need that then. This is a modification to that contract for $200,000 to do formal review of 300 job classifications to aid and to assist us in the total job class review project that we were doing. This project, as you all know, is part of our recommendations on the review of the compensation plan as required by the General Assembly, and this is just to expedite that.
So going back to the Korn Ferry contract a few months ago, that is not the $80,000 contract. Am I correct in that?
This is a modification to that $80,000.
So the only contract we have with Korn Ferry is $80,000.
And this is a modification to that contract, so it's for $280,000.
So am I wrong in recalling that we already have a contract with Korn Ferry to review job classifications on an ongoing basis?
That is for $80,000. That's not just to review job classifications. That's also for training of new staff and to provide consultation to us as well. This is for a specific body of work for 300 job class review.
Okay, so I am incorrect that we have any other contracts from Korn Ferry.
We have one contract. This is a modification of that contract.
Okay, so the job classifications, we were told a month ago that we have an ongoing, I think it's a 10-year cycle, perhaps, if I'm recalling correctly, that
7 to 10 years.
That we go through this, and I suppose is it a one stop every 10 years we're going to do this job classification project, or it's an ongoing every year we do some, and by the time we've gotten through 10 years, we've gotten them all done?
We hope that it does not take 7 years or 10 years to complete it, but it is a review. It will start. So if it takes us 3 to 4 years or longer, depending on our staffing, then it might be something when it ends, we're starting it immediately right back again. Just depends on how long the cycle is. It really depends on my staffing.
And this contract is for 2 years. And I'm trying to get to the bottom of the job classification situation because I felt like we already had something going on with job classification review, and it sounds like now we don't, and now we're just adding it just now, even though I think the request for that was, a year ago in the budget? A year ago we were going to do a study, or is it just this year we've just started talking about job classification studies?
The compensation review was as far as the plan or the recommendations was due to the General Assembly on July the 7th of 22.
Okay, but my understanding was that the KRS requires us to have this contract with these people in California, basically because they're the only vendor that does this, and we do it on an ongoing basis.
Correct.
But you're saying now that this 200,000 is just since July 7th.
That is to do a specific body of work.
And the 80,000 is for the ongoing statutory.
It's to have them, yes, it's to have them for if we have turnover in staffing, they come in and train because our new staff, because it is their methodology. We cannot do that. It needs to come from the company. So they come in and train all staff. They do updated training as needed if their methodology changes. So they will, provide current staff, additional training if needed. They also, if we are, they can review jobs as well if we need them to, and they can also provide consultation when we need it.
Okay, I was actually going to ask you one question, but now I have two. If their methodology changes, are we reviewing that they're still in statutory compliance? Is that in the middle of an RFP cycle, or is that something different?
I'm not exactly sure.
You mentioned we were doing training for if their methodology changes, and I know that we have this contract in order to fulfill a statutory requirement. If their methodology changes, and we've already signed this contract, now does that change how we're fulfilling our requirements under KRS?
No, the methodology might not necessarily change, but it's going to be updated.
No, let me just finish with the $200,000 with these job classifications. This is a 2-year contract, and what is the deadline where we're supposed to have this work done under the July 7th, 2022 law? I felt like it was supposed to be done faster than that, so I'm trying to figure out how a 2, or you said even could be 3 or 4 year process is going to get us what we need by whatever our deadline is.
There is not a deadline for the job class review project. It's when we get it completed. This $200,000 is for Korn Ferry to review 300 jobs and complete that for us.
And we think it's going to take 2 or more years.
No, not for Korn Ferry.
This contract is for 2 years.
Okay.
So when do we think they're going to be done?
By year end, hopefully.
Is there a reason why?
Many factors that go into it that we can't predict once we get into the job class review.
Well, we're already on a contract amendment. So what I'm trying to get to the bottom of is there a reason why we have given them 2 years to do a project that should take 6 months?
The contract is for 2 years. It doesn't mean that it's going to take them that long.
I didn't see anything in here, though, that said that they weren't going to take that long. Is there any assurance you can give to us that this contract really reflects what we're supposed to be getting done here with getting this study done in the next 6 months?
They're going to review 300 jobs within the term of the contract. Our goal is to have it completed by the end of this calendar year. I will not know an exact deadline until we get in and we know all the details of each of the job class reviews.
Mr. Chairman, I'm kind of stuck. I've got a lot of issues going on here. It's hard to unwind all this, but seems like to me we're already modifying a contract. So if we put the deadline at the end of this year and they needed an extra 3 months, we would be back in December talking about that. But it looks like to me this is kind of a amend one contract that's for one thing with something that's totally different. And then it looks like it should have just been a sole source, no bid contract just about, instead of a modification on something different. And then now we've got this 2-year timeline and we're kind of in a hurry for this information and nothing's on paper that's going to actually push these people to get this stuff done. So those are my concerns with this. I want this project to get done. I'm just not sure this contract's been very well done for it.
And if I recall, this is a sole source contract. Is that correct?
I would have to ask that with my procurement people.
Well, the reason I'm asking that is this particular system that they're asking to review and to revise has been in place since, what is it, 1984, was it?
77.
77, yeah. So we've kind of locked ourselves into a system that puts us at the mercy of this company to keep it updated and revised as necessary. Is that correct?
Correct.
So I guess I share Senator Southworth's concern is I would think that if this is kind of an annual maintenance situation plus any additional add-on, that why isn't that covered under the original scope of the contract and we have a one price? Why do we have to keep adding additional cost to this?
Because with the original contract of 80,000, that's not going to get the number of job reviews that we need to expedite this.
Well, that's the point I'm making is this is not a new relationship we have with these folks. It's been in place for years. And if they're responsible for the maintenance of the program, I would think that would be a fixed cost every year. If there's some scope of work that needs to go above and beyond that, I would think probably that would warrant a separate contract rather than an addition or addendum to the current contract. Is that an unreasonable expectation?
I mean, they own this methodology. It's
Exactly.
not-
That's the point I'm making. They own this methodology, so we're held captive by them. And anytime we need an adjustment to it, then they're going to send a new amendment to this contract. We don't know whether the price is reasonable or not. No likelihood it is. I'm not casting any dispersion on you folks, but how do we know we're getting value for what we're spending? I think that's the thrust of this concern.
I guess I don't, I hear what you're saying, but I don't share that same concern in that, it's their methodology. They are a leader in this field nationwide. And we have not had an issue before with their services. And, there's not an issue with it when it's funded, the compensation system as a whole.
I would have to disagree with you, and the fact that they are recognized as a leader in the field, I don't think gives them exclusivity in this whole process. The same thing could be said for folks like IBM back in the 80s. They were the ones that drove information technology. That's not the case today. And we got a system that was in place since 1977. I'd have to ask, is this even legitimate for today's environment that they're in? But, they have built themselves into a situation where they're going to get a revenue stream every year or every 2 years from our Commonwealth without really us having any indication whether these dollars are well spent or not. Again, if they are a group that we're tied to, again, what I would think would be a reasonable expectation is every year we're going to get a contract saying we're going to spend X number of dollars with this firm. And then have to come back 2 or 3 times during the course of a biennium and say, well, we've got to add additional costs to this, is really doesn't give me a sense of security that this is a product that we need to stay married to. And I appreciate that nobody in state governments like change, but sometimes we need to change. Senator Southworth.
Yes, I'm going to follow up with another question. I don't remember the number of states that Korn Ferry services. I feel like it was in the 20s or 30s. Do you call that number?
34.
Can you say who the vendors are that service the other 16 states?
I cannot.
Do you know if it's more than one?
I don't know.
Have we ever done an RFP to check?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, so we've never done an RFP for the services. Other states are using other services, and we have no idea what kind of a deal we're getting or not getting because we married this 50 years ago and we can't figure out how to get out of it.
I don't see that there's a need to get out of it, but
Okay, well, I'm still, hopefully, unfortunately, I don't have a few months worth of searching on my phone. I'm still trying to figure out what our Corn Ferry contract was a couple months ago, but these contracts concern me. We've got no bid contracts, and we know that not all states are using this, so that is fairly decent evidence to me that there are other choices. And that's issue one. Issue two is I still can't handle the agency creating contracts with timelines that don't reflect our needs or desires. Anything that's going to get enforced is going to need to be in writing. And if we don't have something in here that says this job better get together by the end of the calendar year, there's nothing keep making sure they do that. And I think that's my first main issue, besides the fact that I've had problems with the last contract with this group. And we haven't even, I'm not even touched the California issue. I just think the agency itself, that's really my issue here. The agency tells us we're going to get this done in 6 months. And I don't see that in this contract, and everything that gets said needs to be written in writing. And I don't know if we can get an amendment on this thing, a re-amendment to get the timeline added here, or what, because right now we're just all hoping, and it's not in writing, so it's not going to be enforceable. Is there any way that we could get the amendment put on here to change this to be done by the end of this calendar year?
I can take this back to my budget office and talk to them about it.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move to defer this and ask that the agency get a timeline put in this contract in writing that actually reflects what we're discussing here so that it's really ready for action.
Thank you. There's a motion to defer. Is there a second? Is that Representative Bowling? Was that you?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. All those in favor of the motion to defer, vote aye. All opposed, vote no. Kim, please call the roll.
Senator Douglas, Senator Southworth,
Aye.
Senator Yates, Representative Bowling.
Yes.
Representative Hart,
Yes.
Representative Mentor,
Yes.
Representative Cook,
Yes.
Chairman Meredith.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you for being with us this morning. We look forward to discussing this with you next month. Next item on the pulled list is with the Board of Elections, number 2 on the routine MOA pink list. Representatives are here. Please identify yourself for the record.
Karen Sellers, Executive Director of State Board of Elections.
Morning, Taylor Brown, General Counsel.
Good to see you folks again. Appreciate you joining us. Senator Southworth has a question.
Thank you. I'm going to ask probably what I ask every time. What is $85,000 paying for?
If it's okay, I'll just go ahead and list the items that are part of the purchase of the $680,080. It is 39 Verity scan bundles, 39 Verity dust covers, 39 Verity ballot box bases, 25 Verity touch writers, 25 transport bags, 1 tabulation computer, 1 report printer, 1 battery charger, 136 Verity drives, 4 Verity keys, and again, the invoice total is $364,600.80. Paying the reimbursement amount is $85,000 to Shelby County. Their total eligibility is $85,000. They are being paid reimbursed $2,500 per precinct. They have 34 precincts. If I may add, Mr. Chairman, recently at the July 19th Interim Committee of State and Local Government, Hart InterCivic made themselves available to the committee and brought their equipment and actually demonstrated much of this for members of that committee on that day. And I believe it was pretty well received that day. But happy to answer any
So
questions.
the $85,000, is that their share of both the combination of the 6.7 million plus the new 25 million, or is that only in the 6.7 and there's going to be more in the 25?
No, ma'am, it's just the 6.7 million that the State Board of Elections has closed our election security grant, in the process of closing that. This is just eligibility based on the 6.7 million.
Is the 25 going to be distributed evenly like this that you're talking about, or is it going to be distributed just to the people who are trying to get these contracts?
At this point, we're working closely with DLG on the process going forward.
Okay, because I mean, in my communities, this is how it seems to go. Some of these others we've heard, you know, are adding a couple of machines here and there.
Mm-hmm.
This one is a total revamp, it looks like. Do you know what machine, how old, when was the last time they used any funds for new stuff?
I couldn't answer that for sure with Shelby County, but, and Taylor may know, but I believe it was 2008. HAVA dollars were available and 100% of the counties received new election equipment. So I believe Shelby County was probably part of that process in 2008.
I don't recall for a fact, but it seems like to me they still have some DRE machines.
They shouldn't.
Well, in 2008 though, since these 39 new machines sounds like they're doing a whole redo, so it seems like they had some DRE machines before.
They probably did not use them in 2020.
Okay.
I couldn't answer prior to 2020.
Well, my concern is really that, you know, $85,000 is, you know, it's a piece, but it's obviously there's more money coming, and this $364,000 is an awful lot of money. I know a number of counties take out bonds, so they don't have this kind of money. And we're sitting here buying really expensive stuff with, granted, it's a little bit off, but it's not like this huge coupon. And there's more money coming right down the corner. And I'm just wondering if Shelby County is going to get hung out with, you know, almost $300,000 out of their pockets, and 25 million is getting ready to come down the pike tomorrow. Are they going to be able to get a rebate on that, or are they going to have to wait 10 more years before they buy new equipment to get their little chunk of the 25?
Well, actually, you know, it's the 12.5 in the next 2 years. We are working closely with DLG and trying to form a process whereby counties can acquire possible additional dollars for equipment they have purchased now. So in other words,
so they could get a rebate.
they could.
Maybe.
They could.
Okay.
I can't answer that for sure yet. We're working with DLG closely with that, but that is something that is being discussed because we do have a number of counties that are buying election equipment in 2022.
Well, that was kind of my point, and I know, you know, we're sitting here having a conversation, and it's not secret. I don't like these machines at all. I don't think we should be spending $10 million, millions of dollars of taxpayer money on these things. I feel like they're going to probably be extinct next year anyway. And it seems like to me, we don't want them spending all of this money at a very ill-timed point. And of course, the General Assembly, puts money in places, but I'm just not clear on how much money is needed around the state. It's almost like we never have enough, and then we turn around and we have more than we need. So, and then counties are going into debt, literally trying to pay for things that I guess to eke out that they can't or they don't want to or whatnot eke out through this November cycle. So it seems like a very ill-timed contract to me. It just concerns me on a number of levels. That's why I would move to disapprove.
Any questions or discussion? If not, there's a motion to approve. Co-Chair Cook.
Second.
Second by Representative Mentor. All's in favor of the motion vote aye. All opposed will vote no. Kim, please call the roll.
Senator Douglas,
Aye.
Senator Southworth,
Mr. Chairman, did you say there was a motion to approve right after I made a motion to disapprove, and that's what we're voting
I'm sorry, I
on?
didn't hear your motion to disapprove.
Oh.
I didn't have that recorded up here. I'll back up. If I may, we have a motion to disapprove the contract, and my apologies, I did not hear that. There's a motion to disapprove. Is there a second? Being none, that motion fails. Senator Cook, I assume that your motion is still in place. Second by Representative Mentor. All those in favor of the motion to approve will vote aye. All opposed vote no. Kim, please call the roll again.
Senator Douglas,
Aye.
Senator Southworth,
No.
Senator Yates, Representative Bowling,
Yes.
Representative Hart,
Yes.
Representative Mentor,
Yes.
Representative Cook,
Yes.
Chairman Meredith.
Aye. Motion carries. And thank you folks for being available to us this morning. Always good to see you. Appreciate
Thank
your
you.
input. Thank you. Next items on the pulled list are with the Department of Education. And our numbers 41 through 67, 70, 71, excuse me, I'm sorry. I got ahead of myself. My apologies. The next item on the pulled list are with the Department of Workforce Investment, and our numbers 32 through 37. And the representatives here, please identify yourself for the record. Thank you.
There we go. Good morning. Orrin McFarland, Deputy General Counsel, Education Labor Council.
Good morning. Jake Fouts, the Assistant Director of Division of Fiscal Management.
Michael Bowman, Special Assistant to the Secretary of Education and Labor.
Appreciate you gentlemen joining us this morning. None of you are from California, are you?
No.
Good. We're off to a good start so far.
Only been there one time.
Didn't like it.
And I didn't like it. Well, actually did. It was-
That last comment just saved you. Yes. I request these contracts be pulled, and I'm sure it's no surprise to you gentlemen. It's because it's a retroactive approval, which I have even a greater aversion to than I do contracts from California. I do appreciate the explanation here, but I don't know who authored this, but it says the reason we're seeing these contracts retroactively is that there are multiple factors that prevented the contracts not being placed by the 7/1 start date. Purchasing manager not monitoring the work performance of the staff, purchasing manager lacking management skills needed to delegate the workload and distribute it fairly to staff, telecommute schedule for the branch not conducive to workloads. Quite candidly, kind of a damning indictment of the folks who have these responsibilities. So I'm just curious what remedial action is being taken to make sure this doesn't occur again.
Senator Meredith, I'll speak to that. We came into the contract season understaffed. We hired new staff, and we're in the middle of training them. We have an overwhelming amount of contracts with the department. And then our manager left. We also did not have a director of the fiscal management team because they had left as well. So due to the shortage of staff, the overwhelming work, the merger added to it because there was additional work going into the closeout. We were unable to meet the deadline. And there is no other excuse other than it was a lot of work and short staff.
Can you give some insight by the statement about telecommute schedule for the branch not conducive to workloads? What's that mean?
Sir, I'm not really sure. The telecommuting schedule we've had in place for 2 years. All the staff up until this point have been working effectively and efficiently with their telecommuting schedule. As you know, contract season is super busy as well going into closeout. That's all I can speak to as far as that comment.
Do we still have staff performing duties via telecommute?
We do, yes, sir. There is a
Why?
telecommuting agreement. It's just the agreement we have in place. currently.
Excuse me?
The agreement and policy that we have in place is what stands, and it's not something that I can speak to.
What kind of agreement do we have? I mean, these aren't contract employees, are they?
No, sir. These are state employees with the fiscal management.
So is this a policy of your department, your division?
The telecommuting policies were created by the cabinet, and now we have merged into a new cabinet, and new policies are going out.
So when will all employees be expected to return to work in person?
I cannot answer that question. I'm not high enough on the food chain for that.
Co-Chair Cook, you have a
Yeah,
question.
I just want to echo the anger. I mean, it says your all's words, not ours. Telecommuting scheduled for the branch not conducive to workloads. We need a fix. Your words, not ours. We're just here saying back what you said. I think it's time to we got to address that. You're gonna have to tighten down your telecommuting, or you're gonna have to end the telecommuting. That's all I got.
Senator Southworth.
Thank you. When people have projects to do as a matter of course, my understanding is, and my experience has been, telecommuting can work really well. But it sounds like to me you guys had a major influx of new people and training that needed to happen. And training is not work as a matter of course. So are there going to be policies in the cabinet or in your division, or can you float those up to the cabinet, whoever's making these rules, that when new people are coming in, and it's inconvenient, but supervisors are going to have to be there to train the new people. You can't show people how new things work and they're not there and you're not there. So is there going to be any kind of communications, or have there already been communications on training doesn't go under the same telecommuting times as regular people that have their workflows already established?
Currently, the policy right now with new employees that they are to work 5 days a week for the first 3 months, and then be evaluated at that time whether or not they can move to maybe a lesser amount of time in office.
Are there supervisors there, though, training them 5 days a week, or are they sitting there by themselves 5 days a week with the one mega supervisor trying to manage everything normal plus pretend like they're watching them?
Supervisors are required to come in as needed, and their telecommuting schedules are what their agreements are. So.
Okay. Well, let me just reiterate that it needs to be put to the cabinet or something that supervisors, they're not in their regular mode of work whenever they've got new people to train. And my experience in seeing this multiple times over in a number of different agencies, it seems like we keep hitting the same thing. I'm all about telecommuting when it works and everybody's in a workflow. You could get more done when people aren't jaw-jacking in the hallway. And conversations I've had with personnel cabinet officials in the past is, we all know we're not getting 100% work productivity in the offices. So I'm not sitting here saying we have to have the same or more productivity at home. But what we have got to do is supervisors have to be supervising when we have new people, because the number of new people that are sitting around literally watching my purpose videos that are not learning their actual task, it's out there. I'm not saying anything anyone doesn't know, but it needs to get out there. This can't keep going on. They need to spend their 3 months actually learning their job skills, and that is probably going to mean supervisor is going to be there 5 days a week with them, because what's the point of a new person sitting by themselves in an office? Teams meetings, work to a degree once you have a communication and you know their tone and their personality. But in order to really read somebody, you're going to have face-to-face. So that's my input. I would say get the cabinet aware of it and get these things straightened out. This might not have happened as much if everyone was on the ball ahead of time, knowing this was coming instead of letting it happen later and then go, whoops. Thank you.
Senator Douglas, you have a question, comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The emergency declaration was canceled months and months ago. I share the same concern. I just want to know how far behind we are. You know, I'm hearing here that the new people come in and they have to work 5 days a week for how many months?
I believe the requirement is 3.
3 months.
And then it's evaluated at that point.
Okay. And we don't have a supervisor who has to be there. That is, am I missing something there? Or is that what I heard you say?
No, sir, those are not my words. They're there as needed.
What does that mean?
If they need to be there to train, then
I still don't know what that means.
Okay.
Are you telling me that they were there so we are not behind? Are you telling me that the supervisor gets to decide how quickly these persons are learning or going to be able to learn without them there?
I unfortunately can't. I personally cannot speak for the cabinet policy. It's not something that I create, so I can't speak to.
Well, I just want you to know we're dealing with the people of the Commonwealth. We're dealing with their money, and you will hear me say that over and over and over. And we have supervisors who are being paid, and they're getting to make a decision whether or not they need to be in to train new people that they know very little about, and those new people know very little about the system. That's very concerning to me. It's very concerning to me, especially when we're using someone else's money. We don't even know how far we're behind in terms of the knowledge that these people are supposed to have, do we?
I can't speak to that.
Okay. Do we know whether they've been evaluated? Because after 3 months, they get evaluated. Can you tell me that they've been evaluated? The new people.
That policy is brand new as of right now, so it hasn't been 3 months, so I can't speak to that.
Okay. I'm not blaming you. I'm trying to understand the system. I hope you know that. I'm not blaming anyone. I'm just trying to understand the system, because what we're doing and what we're dealing with is not free. It is not free. It is costing our taxpayers a lot of money. And they're sitting there asking us to help be more efficient in the distribution of their tax dollars. And we're sitting here saying the system, people don't understand the system, or the system's there, and we've got to get everybody else to buy into creating a more efficient system. So I just want you to know we're just simply asking the questions so we can better understand how things work, so we'll have more intelligent questions to ask in the future.
Understood.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Douglas. I hope you understand why we're concerned about this. Because someone didn't do their job, we can't do our job. And the reason I have this aversion of retroactively approving contracts is it used to be almost epidemic for this committee several years ago. And I don't want to get second nature again that, well, if we can't meet deadlines, we'll just ask for retroactive approval. We take our responsibilities very seriously here, that we're spending the dollars of the Commonwealth wisely. And we have no way of substantiating that today. These contracts went in place July 1st, so I'm assuming the work's ongoing. So we're kind of married to this. But I tell people that when we approve a contract, it's like the good housekeeping seal of approval. You know it's good. You know it's being spent wisely on behalf of the Commonwealth, and we can't do this today. But, you know, this explanation that we received, it truly is damning of the cabinet, and I would be embarrassed by it. Not so much for you guys. Senator Douglas said, you know, he's not pointing a finger at anybody. I will. The buck has to stop someplace. And I think we know where that buck stops, and that's not in the best interest of our citizens. I think it's a poor reflection on our Commonwealth, and I wonder how bad this problem is throughout state government. But we need to see some change. People need to get back to work. We need to build accountability back again. I guess the last question I have is this manager that the reference here, did she leave on her own volition? Or she or he leave on their own volition, or were they asked to leave?
They left on their own. They found a new opportunity and took it.
All right. Any other questions, discussions? If not, I entertain a motion.
I think we made our point pretty clear, very clear. I agree with Chairman Meredith. We are pretty much married to these contracts, and I think it does more harm to have interruption in these services, and therefore I'm grudgingly going to make a motion to approve these contracts.
Is there a second? Second by Senator Douglas. All those in favor of approving the contracts vote aye. All opposed vote no. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Douglas,
I vote aye, but would like to explain my vote.
Please.
We are married to a lot of contracts, apparently in our state, and this committee is really taking a hard look at those contracts. We've got to stop rubber stamping contracts just because they've been around. So, not in an intimidating way, but I certainly want to let all of those who come through here now know that we are taking a serious look at all the contracts, and for those contracts that people can't really explain, it may be that we don't really need them. So just keep an eye out. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Southworth,
That's my vote, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, please.
I'm voting aye, and thank you all for being here in person.
Senator Yates, Representative Bowling.
Yes.
Representative Hart,
Yes.
Representative Mentor,
Yes.
Representative Cook,
Yes.
Chairman Meredith.
I mean, no, it's kind of a symbolic no. But I appreciate you taking copious notes while we're having this discussion. One I would appreciate if you would add to your list there is one of the things that we have asked of folks, if they know they're going to be in a situation where there's a retroactive request, you let us know that as soon as possible rather than 2 or 3 days before the committee. There are always extenuating circumstances, and we're willing to accept those, and we have on occasion. But if you'll let us know beforehand, it kind of softens this discussion, and we can make a more appropriate determination then as to whether it's appropriate or not. Obviously, you got some epic failures there that none of you guys are responsible for. But again, if someone just let us know beforehand that we've got a retroactive contract coming, I would greatly appreciate that. But with that, the motion carries. And gentlemen, I appreciate you being here this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the work you do. Next item on the pull list are at the Department of Education are numbers 41 through 67. 70, 71, and 84 on the routine MOA pink list. If representatives are here, please identify yourself for the record.
Good morning. My name is Karen Worth. I'm the director in the Division of Budgets and Financial Management.
Excuse me, is your mic on?
Green light.
Is it green? Green light?
Let me try again.
Pull a little bit closer to you, maybe
Okay.
this one. Yeah, please. Thank you.
Karen Worth, the director of the Division of Budgets and Financial Management. I'll let my colleagues here at the table introduce themselves and also have several online.
Good morning, members of the Government Contract Review Committee. Chairman Meredith, pleasure to be before you all this morning to discuss these
I'm sorry,
contracts.
is your mic on as well, or
It's
just-
on.
Can you pull
Let
it a
me
little bit closer to you?
Again, good morning, members of the Government Contract Review Committee. Chairman Meredith, it's a pleasure to be here once again to discuss these contracts and help carry out the work here in the Commonwealth to better educate all 647,000 of our kids.
Good morning. My name is Dr. Damian Sweeney. I'm the Director of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging at the Kentucky Department of Education. We've also got Christina Weeder. We need more chairs.
Good morning. Christina Weeder, the Director of the Division of Student Success at KDE.
And we also have a couple people online. Greta Hilton.
Good morning. I'm Greta Hilton, the Associate Commissioner for the Office of Special Education and Early Learning.
Is that everyone?
Hi, good morning. My name is Kelly Foster. I'm the Associate Commissioner of the Office of Continuous Improvement and Support.
And good morning. My name is Carol Ann Morrison, and I'm the Director of the Division of IDEA Monitoring and Results.
That should be all of us, Chair.
Promise?
Think so.
Anyone from California?
No,
All right, good.
Make sure to stay clear
We're
of
rolling
that.
now. For benefit of our committee, Central Southworth and I are the only ones that have pulled these contracts. And my issue for most of these contracts are the same. And Central Southworth, if I could, I think 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 50, 51, 52, all the way through 65, 67 are the same issue for me. 49 we have pulled out separately, and 70 and 84. I believe the ones that, do you have a question about 84?
Hang on, let me catch up with you here.
I mean, that's the easier way of saying it. All the issue is germane to all these except for 49, 70, and 84.
You want to just cover some in pieces, and
Yeah, I wanna
catch
cover all
up.
those that-
Once you ask your questions, I'll know what we're talking about, because it's a list.
Yes, it is. I'm sorry for that. Okay, well, we'll go down that road. And I appreciate all of you being here this morning. Most of these contracts, same explanation we receive is provide funds for support to schools designated as comprehensive support and improvement through serving on audit teams, assisting with school turnaround plans, and with implementation of turnaround plans and other activities required by KRS 1.60.346. The question I have is, are these all for the same school district?
They are not. No, they are for multiple school districts across the Commonwealth,
Okay.
wherever those CSI or TSI schools are located.
Then the people that you have selected here, because we have a name for each person under each contract, how are they selected?
Dr. Foster, can you speak on that?
I sure will. Thank you. Good morning. So every probably February, late February, early March, I post the job position and people across the state apply for this position. Everyone that is working as an education recovery specialist or education recovery leader has experience as a classroom teacher, as an instructional coach, as a principal, an assistant principal, instructional supervisor, assistant superintendent, or superintendent. So they go through a rigorous interview process with face-to-face interviews as well as written pieces of the interview process.
And who makes the final determination as to who gets hired and who doesn't?
I have a team of people that do the interview process, but I approve all the hires.
Okay. Can you tell me, give me some idea of this is a rather broad definition of what this contract is for, but when they go into a school system that needs this CSI support, what are their roles and responsibilities?
Sure. So there's actually two different jobs that we're looking at in the contracts. One is an education recovery specialist. The other is an education recovery leader. So an education and recovery specialist is working directly with the classroom teacher to build sustainable systems to help improve student achievement. And the education recovery leader is working with the school principal and his or her leadership team to build sustainable systems.
Are these services requested by the school district, or are they mandated by the Department of Education?
So actually, in Senate Bill 1 of 2020, in that the department every year by the federal government, we have to identify CSI schools, and we'll be doing that in October. But Senate Bill 1 of 2020 has it set up where the department will put out a call for vendors, and that the Kentucky Board of Education will approve the vendors. And then each CSI school has to identify the vendor that they would like to work with. And so the department is considered a vendor and we offer those services. But this year, you know, the CSI schools will have an opportunity to work with a vendor outside of the Department of Education.
How many CSI schools do we presently have?
51.
51. Out of a total of how many? Do you have a total?
Approximately 1,300 schools across the state, a little bit more than that, but currently we have 51. The way those are identified is by the federal government. It's the bottom 5% of schools across the state. So in October, once the new test scores are released from the spring assessment of 22, we'll be identifying new schools.
Have we been able to move the needle any?
Oh, yes. We actually are a leader across the nation in our school turnaround services. Due to COVID, we have not identified schools. The federal government has been very nice and given us waivers. So we have identified since the fall of 2019. But yes, we have a long history of helping the lowest performing schools and moving out of that. We've yet to ever have a school exit CSI status and come back into it.
Then at our worst, for want of a better term, what's the most number of CSI schools that we've had? Do you recall?
It's always around 50, 51 because it's the bottom 5%. So, you know, we're always going to be right around that number. This year we have, if it's going to be a little bit different this year, if you don't exit and we're identifying new schools, it could be more, but typically the bottom 5% is always around 50.
So if it's always the bottom 5%, then as we're going down this path, then we should be, in theory, raising the bar every year. Is that correct?
Well, we hope every year to exit schools from CSI status.
Well, in theory, do we ever get to the point where we could have 0 schools that are CSI? If you always
No.
get the bottom 5%, that's what I'm trying to get at. It's just,
Yes.
So if we're always raising the bar, is that fair?
I think it's very fair. We are always raising the bar, but the federal government is always going to require us to identify the bottom 5%. So there's always going to be a bottom 5.
What's the, I know this is a very broad question, but what's the factors in the determination of the CSI scoring? How do we know a school is at that bottom 5%? What are they failing in?
Sure. They're failing basically in the academics of the school. You have 2 ways that you can be identified as CSI. One is based on the state assessment, and the other one is having a graduation rate if you're a high school below 80%.
All right, thank you. I think that's all the questions I have. Senator Southworth, do you have any questions?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, on the CSI schools, I've identified the 41 through 48, 53 through 60, and 63 through 67, and number 84. I'll ask a question on those, and then I'll move to approve those so we can clear this out. This bottom 5%, I think I heard you say it was federally required to be the 5% number.
Yes, ma'am.
And so what I'm trying to figure out is, do we have any supports other than the regular tier 2, tier 3 instructional supports in the schools? But is there any kind of comprehensive support for, let's say, the other 45% or up to however many? Because I feel like I've seen a lot of numbers in the last year or so where I think 70% of our students are under proficient in science. I think 50 or so percent we're not up to par in their literacy. Those type of numbers are quite concerning when we've got comprehensive supports for the bottom 5, but then I've got 45% left that I still haven't touched. And obviously there's some interventions there, but you know, after so many years of hearing that the bar has been raised, I'm wondering how long are we going to be before we get there, and these kids are going to be graduated by then not reading.
So my office also provides supports to schools that are considered TSI schools, which are targeted schools. And basically they have a percentage of their population that is defined by the federal government as scoring as poorly as the bottom 5%. So I also provide supports to those schools as well.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chairman, do I need to read those numbers off that I'm going to move to approve?
We could do it either. Yes. Help me.
41 through 48, 53 through 60, 63 through 67, and 84. Those were all of the CSI leaders and specialists, and I would move to approve those.
I have a note from staff here that number 57 and 63 people hired under those contracts have resigned. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
So I guess since
Do we need to
Southworth,
not approve them, or what's the appropriate?
so I assume we exclude those from your motion.
Sure.
Since,
There you go.
okay.
That motion.
All right. Everybody perfectly clear on that? Second. Thank you. All those in favor of the motion vote aye. All opposed vote no. Kim, please call the roll.
Senator Douglas,
Aye.
Senator Southworth,
Aye.
Senator Yates, Representative Bowling. Yes. Representative Hart,
Yes.
Representative Mentor,
Yes.
Representative Cook,
Yes.
Chairman Meredith.
Aye. Motion carries. So that leaves 49, 51, and 70 for us still to discuss, if we're all on the same page here. And Senator Southworth and I have questions about that. I'll start if there's no objection. With number 49, the agreement description says, provide funds to help educators in the Commonwealth understand and implement these terms through strategic planning, presentations, school district support visits, and more. This position will oversee elementary, secondary school emergency relief funds related to DEIB, the program coordinator for comprehensive school counseling. 2 additional staff members will endeavor in this work. My question goes back to the first part of that statement is, provide funds to help educators in the Commonwealth understand and implement these terms. What are those terms? What are we referencing there?
Senator Meredith, are you referencing the terms DEIB?
Excuse me?
Are you referring to DEIB?
Yes.
And defining what those terms are?
Right.
DEIB refers to diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. The Commonwealth of Kentucky, the Kentucky Department of Education, takes a broad look in terms of looking at student and staff diversity. It covers gender, it covers socioeconomic status, language spoken at home. It also covers sexual orientation. It covers a plethora of things. It's not just a conversation or not just a consideration of ethnic diversity. Many times when we look at diversity, we talk about black and white, but we look at every individual aspect of every student. Equity simply means giving our students what they need. We know all students don't necessarily come to school equal at the starting line. Some students may need additional support over and beyond others. Inclusion simply is involving all of our students and our staff into the school system and helping them feel accepted. Here in Kentucky, with the Kentucky Department of Education, we were one of the first to include belonging. We can talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. Ultimately, we want to get to belonging, where all of our students and all of our staff who walk into our building have a sense of belonging. As the Deputy Commissioner and Chief Equity Officer, it's my pleasure to work alongside our Director of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging. And I'll ask Dr. Sweeney briefly if there's anything he would like to add as we continue to make a more welcoming environment for all of our kids here in the Commonwealth. Dr. Sweeney.
Yes, good morning again. With with our Deputy Commissioner and Chief Equity Officer's vision, we are a national leader in this work. We have the equity playbook that we discussed several months ago with you. We've got modules that we are creating. We're creating safe spaces, opportunities for safe spaces in every single region of our Commonwealth. We are doing so much to make sure that our students and their families, whether they are historically underrepresented or other, feel that sense of belonging that Dr. Woods Tucker just mentioned.
And I will say this, Chair Meredith and members of the Government Contract Review Committee, I know several months ago, all these months and days do run together, we had discussed this and you all did approve this, but I do appreciate any time to engage in conversations with you all to discuss what services and what opportunities we're providing to all students, and we do mean each student in the Commonwealth. So looking forward to expanding this role and providing more services to our students, and of course keeping our community members and families involved.
Let me make sure that I understand exactly what we're doing here. If I had to rewrite this synopsis here, can I say provide funds to help educators in the Commonwealth understand and implement diversity, equity, and inclusion?
And belonging.
And belonging.
Yes, sir.
So that's the intent of this.
Yes.
Is this K through 12?
Yes, it is, and working with our partners at the co-op and also working with higher ed. There's very little we do in K-12 where we don't involve higher ed, where we don't involve workforce development. Certainly what we've done at the Kentucky Department of Education for years prior to me coming here, which has been almost, can't believe it's almost 2 years, but we pride ourselves in working across the agency and engaging higher ed.
We do have a partnership with the Council on Post-Secondary Education as well.
Can you give me some practical examples of how this is accomplished in the classroom?
Yes. So I'll give you my favorite quote. Nothing about us without us is for us, right? So we talk about the importance of student voice and co-ownership, co-own school cultures, classrooms, and environments, right? So one of the things that we do is we make sure that our educators have a good understanding of cultural proficiency and that they are finding unique ways to allow our students to tell their stories and to share their backgrounds and make sure that they do feel this sense of ownership in their own school and their own learning. Similarly, we show educators, especially school and district leaders, how to make sure that they are listening to the voices of our families, right? So we talk a lot about our historically underrepresented families and all families and making sure that they all feel this sense of belonging.
And when Dr. Sweeney says all students, he means each student in the Commonwealth, regardless of his or her background.
Right, so equity is a huge foundation of what we do. And as Dr. Woods Tucker mentioned, when we talk about equity, we're finding ways to educate students based on exactly what they need. So we're personalizing and differentiating education based on that student's needs.
Yep.
I appreciate the answer, but you've kind of told me what the expectations of teachers are, but I'm looking for practical examples of exactly what are we teaching the children? What are they expected to take away from this?
Yeah, okay. So our students should all be able to see, I think we could all agree that our students should be able to see themselves in the curriculum, right? So I should be able to see myself reflected in the curriculum as a protagonist, right? So somebody with my lived experience, somebody from my background, I should also be able to learn from other people that don't share my lived experience in the curriculum, right? So we know that our students are going out and graduating and going out into this diverse world. So we want to make sure that they are exposed to that diversity in the classroom.
Yeah. And that's a broad range of learners, because many times when we talk about this work, or states find themselves embattled in conversations about this, thank God that we don't have that issue here in Kentucky. It's very, very defined. The learner is very defined. You will see a plethora of opportunities provided for students whose English, who are English learners, whereas English is not the language spoken at home, but they are growing in English, as well as students who are part of the Governor's Scholars Program. Under Commissioner Glass, we've expanded the number of campuses for our Governor's Scholars Program. Again, elevating that student voice. We know many of our students in the Governor's Scholars Program are very high achievers. We've also opened up a second campus for our students who are inclined in arts. We've expanded the Governor's Scholars Arts Program, and I certainly want to thank Dr. Sweeney and our folks that we'll talk about later in our department for helping that come to fruition. Again, meeting the unique needs of a broad spectrum of learners.
Well, you know, it sounds like a rhetorical statement. It's not meant to be, but this is a very strong subject throughout the United States right now, and a lot of discussion about it as to what's appropriate or not. But in terms of, let's say, inclusion, is gender identity part of this curriculum?
Yes, it is. Again, when we say each student, we do mean each student. We may not have a steep understanding of what gender inclusion is or how people tend to identify themselves. I will say this, but we can help each other develop a greater level of empathy and respect. And so that's certainly one of the outcomes of the work we do here in the Commonwealth.
Well, it goes back to my original question. I'm trying to figure out, particularly from the primary grade level, as to what exercise they're having to be engaged in to accomplish this, like gender identity. You know, if this is for second grade and third graders, and I've got a granddaughter who's second grade,
and
how are we teaching them gender identity? And should we be teaching them gender identity?
And again, I don't want this to be equated with gender identity. It's far more broader than that, or critical race theory, for which you've seen me here 10 times, and we've never talked about critical race theory. That's not something that's happening here in your K-12 Kentucky schools. We certainly know at that particular age, kindergartners that you're referring to, first grade, second graders, that's not an appropriate conversation that I see our classroom teachers and administrators having. But I do see them having conversations about respect for others.
We don't advocate for a single curriculum. We advocate for creating a sense of belonging throughout the school, a welcoming environment for all, regardless of background.
And that, as I said earlier, really has kept Kentucky out of the fray. We haven't narrowed in on anything. We know it's important that we elevate the voices of our students and our staff, and we respect and provide opportunities along with the family, along with the community. And again, we'll talk about some community engagement here in a little bit. So I really appreciate the fact that we can go about and do this work respectfully here in Kentucky.
I appreciate you do, but I guess one of my concerns, and my wife was a second grade teacher for 32 years, and watching her career over those 32 years, I saw more and more demands placed on our educators, and it went beyond traditional education, you know, reading, writing, arithmetic. And one of the complaints I'd hear constantly is that, how are we going to find time to teach all this? And if we're not sticking with the basics, reading, writing, arithmetic, and now we're interjecting these additional exercises into the school day, how do we find time to do that? You know, I had a constituent recently tell me, a very educated man, that he and his son were involved in a business transaction, and they each had to sign a document, a contract, so to speak. He signed it, handed it over to his son, and he said, "Son, sign this." And the son just looked at him. He said, "Sign the contract." He said, "I don't know how." Now, he just graduated from high school, and he said, "They didn't teach us that." I don't know anything that's more elementary than learning to sign your signature on a line. But if we're failing in that regard, do we really have time for these additional responsibilities that we're interjecting into the school system?
And I can speak on that, and then I'll ask Dr. Sweeney if he has any comments. This is, and I certainly respect what you're saying and the thoughts of the distinguished Government Contract Review Committee members. We're not taking time out of teachers' schedules and interjecting something new into the curriculum. We do have professional development days. We do have, when students are not there, we do have summer training. We do have other opportunities to help our teachers and our administrators and support staff. Many times we forget about our support staff really understand this whole business of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. But this is not something extra. This is not an add-on. We do this during professional development time. We do this when teachers and administrators do have time to engage in professional development. I did give each of you a research paper behind some of this work we're doing, especially with the playbook. I do appreciate you all approving the playbook the last time I was here. And what it really gets at is professional development and real-time training. Those types of things have the biggest impact on the instructional program and in changing instructional practices. And it should be done in real time, and we're able to do that in real time, but not taken away from classroom instruction from the 3 R's.
No, but I hope you would agree that sometime that's got to drill itself down into daily instruction.
Yeah.
You know, I heard, for example, in a school in one of my district, that middle schoolers went through an exercise. They all went outside and all lined up, and the teacher said, everyone whose parents have a college education, step forward, which they did. And then the next group, whose parents only have a high school education, and continue to stratify the student population. But the first group to step forward, the teacher said, well, you're privileged. Does that mean the ones that behind are not privileged? And what kind of message does that send to those in each line? What are we trying to accomplish there? And is this really the role of educators?
And Senator Meredith, I don't know of any examples of this happening in Kentucky, but I can certainly tell you this work here does not include any privilege walks or any privilege demonstrations whatsoever. And
it may not, excuse me for interrupting, it may not, but if we're training our educators, taking professional development days to embrace these concepts, it's got to equate itself some point in time to class exercise and expectations. So are we doing those things as a result of that?
Not the things that you're talking about. Dr. Sweeney, you're going to say.
Right. So again, as Dr. Woods Tucker mentioned, that sense of belonging is very important. And one of the things that we pride ourselves in is creating psychologically safe spaces and teaching our educators how to create the same. When we create psychologically safe spaces, our kids are more apt to learn. So we're not doing, what you just described is not a psychologically safe environment, right? You're kind of separating some students from others, and that's not a psychologically safe space, right? So our work actually shows how that is not helpful to our students and other ways to be helpful and more impactful for our students, so they do feel that sense of belonging, they do feel that sense of inclusion, and they can learn.
Yeah.
Senator Douglas, you have a question, comment?
I do. Thank you, Mr. Chair. In the interest of time, I'll try to go over these, if you will bear with me, because I have more than one point to make. Is that okay, Mr. Chair?
Yes, please.
Okay. We started out talking about comprehensive support and improvement. Am I correct in that? But now I'm being asked to approve a contract that is for other things, that includes other things. And my concern is, when I grew up and I went to school, comprehensive to me meant encompassing everything. Now I'm learning that that's not true. Because if that were true, we wouldn't need someone else to teach something different. And that's a concern that I have sitting here on this committee. And I just want to throw that out first of all. Then I want to move to our schools. My concern is, what are our schools for? Are our schools to teach children or to raise children? And my big concern is that we are moving our schools into a social structure where we are raising children, which is not what our Kentucky Constitution asks us to do in our education system. Go read section 183 through 189. I review those things. That is not in there. Perhaps I will go back and read it again, and maybe I'll see it somewhere. But I want you to know, I haven't seen our Kentucky Constitution say it's our job to, quote, raise children. Now, we talk about culture, and we throw that word around a lot as if everybody knows what that means. And I'm here to tell you they don't, because my third day in the Senate, I stood up as a supposedly uninformed freshman senator, and I read the definition of culture. And I think that we all would be served well by going back and relearning that definition. We talk about a sense of belonging. Sense of belongings begin at home. And somehow we're trying to make our schools that venue which teaches our kids a sense of belonging, and then they go home and they're not fed. And we know this. We all know this. We all know that we can look at each other and say, if this is not getting cultivated at home, it's difficult, very difficult for these children. We talk about teaching kids caring and that sense of belonging. And the only question I have is, does it really cost money to show our children a sense of belonging and that we love them? Does it really cost money for us in our school system to show our kids that we love them? Again, I think sometimes we're spending money in the wrong areas, and we're trying to raise our kids in the school. And finally, Mr. Chair, if I may, my overall concern is the question of, are we teaching our children what they need, or are we teaching them what we think they need? Because a lot of what I hear is separating what we now define as our cultures, which is the wrong definition of culture in the first place. We're creating more separation than we are bringing people together. We're telling people how diverse they are, how different they are, how we should accept all of these things. Those kids aren't thinking about that. They're thinking about Tootsie Rolls. They're thinking about hot fudge sundaes. They're thinking about watching something on TV. But we're refocusing them because, well, they're actually not smart enough to know what they really want. That's sort of what I get sometimes when I hear some of these things. And I just want to share my concern as a senator who has 3 children. And yes, they are physicians. But I would sit here and say no one in this room started out at a lower level socioeconomically than I did. And I'll have that conversation with you all day long. So my concern is that we're telling kids what they need instead of asking them what they need. And I hope that someday we can have that conversation in here. I apologize for taking up too much time. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Douglas. Senator Southworth, you have questions regarding this contract as well?
Yes, I'm going to start on page 4 at the very top of the contract. It says we're creating an equity task force that is inclusive of Black and Latinx community partners. My question is, I have never seen anything in here that includes Latinos or the Latinas. And if you talk to these folks, there are many that are offended every time they see this word Latinx, because Latinx is not Latin at all. It's a creature of something outside of their culture that they do not even know what it is, and we're pushing it on them. That's how they feel. And how are we including the Latinos and the Latinas in here?
That task force that we are creating will include people of all different ethnic and cultural backgrounds, and certainly Senator Southworth, we do appreciate your input regarding the term Latinx. We'll certainly keep that in mind, and as we continue, as we continue to broaden our horizons. And I certainly respect the comments that Senator Douglas made, but to each member of this great committee, some of the things that you've raised is actually in Kentucky State statute in the Safety and Resiliency Act, and it pretty much says we need to conduct an assessment, schools need to conduct an assessment of school climate, including but not limited to inclusiveness and respect for diversity. And so we are also keeping in with law. We certainly understand the concerns that you have. And one of the things I always say is that always assume positive intent and having a growth mindset as we learn to respect each other's cultures and each other's differences. We have a plethora of research that's out there, Senator Douglas, that says that students perform better when we have a better understanding of their cultural background and how, not only how we're different, but also being able to express how we are alike, something that Dr. Sweeney mentioned earlier.
Thank you. My next question goes to really the kind of the core of this whole thing. In our Pink 49, Mr. Chairman does mention it, and I don't know if you want me to bring up any others that go along with this. And in the group, we've got 49, number 70, and number 71. 49, we're talking about helping educators. Number 70, we're going to work on personalized use of digital tools. And then in number 71, we're doing 6 video trainings. And the video trainings are empowering educators. My question is, when you talk about reaching down to every student, so far I haven't really seen a lot of student outreach. I've seen a lot of PD. And the reality in PD world is, particularly on number 71, mostly I'm extra concerned. These PD movie video series or whatnot can be watched by teachers. Now, teachers can watch YouTubes anywhere they want, anytime they want. There's a bunch of information out there. There's no shortage. We're in the information age. Why are we spending $300,000 in this state to create videos that I can pretty well say, if the teachers are interested in, they've already watched something similar on their own time, just like they buy classroom materials out of their own pockets, which I don't think we should do, but they're doing. I mean, I think they should do it since we're not, but you know, they're spending, if you have a really good teacher, in my experience when I was teaching, I spent a lot of time the days I really wanted to preparing, learning. I've got a problem kid. I got to figure out how am I going to get through to this kid. That's the life of a teacher, if they're not burned down with all this other stuff. But what I'm hearing from teachers is they want us to watch these PD videos, so we hit play. We have no idea if they're actually watching them. And the ones who don't really want to watch them and haven't already watched them on YouTube already aren't watching them anyway. And now we've got $300,000 down the toilet with having new versions of YouTubes on our state website. So what I'm trying to get to the bottom of is, why don't we put this $300,000 to, you know, something that is more educator driven versus educator mandated. You know, if teachers need an extra aide in their classroom one day a week to help kids that are struggling, we could cover that. We could cover several of those for several classrooms for this dollar amount. That would be a lot more meaningful to a lot of teachers than videos they don't even watch.
Okay. Yeah, I'll be very brief, and then no, Dr. Sweeney wants to make some comments here. Senator Southworth, members of the Government Contract Review Committee, Senator Southworth mentioned several contract numbers, 49, 70, and 71. Again, those are contracts that this committee has previously approved of individuals. Now, in regards to the modules, there aren't any other modules out there with this specific nature that would allow our teachers, our administrators, even our pre-service teachers. Again, we work with our partners in higher ed, particularly our teacher education programs. These modules will be made available for them for free as a part of spending federal dollars. Speaking of spending federal dollars, and Mrs. Worth, you can correct me, we can't use these particular dollars to hire staff. So when the dollars run out in a couple years, the staff will go. So we do know, again, I go back to the research documents I put on your desk. It talks about the efficacy of professional development done properly, done with coaches who feel comfortable with the subject matter, and instructional leaders like principals, and working with teachers to understand the DEIB model that we have.
Right. So these modules are educator-driven. Videos will be taken in Kentucky schools of educators performing some of these tasks, like restorative practices. This will get down to the student level as well. One of the terms you used was problem kid. So we don't have problem kids in Kentucky. We have kids that have trauma and need support. And so that's one of the things that our office seeks to train our educators on, is we do not have problem kids. We have kids with trauma and that need help. All of this work is to ensure that our kids get what they need, that our educators know how to provide those needs, and more.
Okay, so I guess to wrap up on this, it sounds like to me we've got federal funds that don't let us use it for what we really need, so we're trying to create a whole system on other stuff that doesn't touch the kids so it doesn't go against our staffing rules. Is that more a fair assessment?
Respectfully, Senator Southworth, I will disagree with you on that. I do respect your concern, but I would disagree with you. Again, we are looking at the actions that we're taking in working with our teachers, in working with our folks at the Ed Co-op, and working with our superintendents and principals. As a matter of fact, I will be joining the Commissioner's Superintendent's webcast that brings in all superintendents in the state, to talk about these items that we have here to be approved and supported by the Government Contract Review Committee. We do know, again, I'll go back to the research paper that we've given you, we do know next to a teacher in the classroom, the highest effect on student achievement will be to ensure that teachers have the resource, and principals have the resources, high quality instructional resources and tools. I've talked about that here before, and they have high levels of coaching. And so this is one of our coaching tools to positively impact instructional practices in the classroom, which will raise student achievement and will continue, as Dr. Foster mentioned during her presentation, to get more and more of our schools out of CSI, out of continuous improvement.
Well, final couple of comments. You mentioned that we were going to be able to get rid of all of this in 2 years when the federal funds moved out, but a few months ago you indicated, when I asked originally, I think the first day that we met you, and I appreciate you being here all the time and always giving a great presentation, sure. But that you hope this was not intended to be a short-lived thing. This is intended to be baked into the process from here on out, and we just don't have a funding source in 2 years. So that certainly is, another underlying issue that has always underlined all of the issues that I've wondered about on all these different contracts. But finally, with what you mentioned about having all of the various coaching and different things like that, sounds like we can't hire staff, but we can hire coaches to help our staff. And I'm all for helping relieve our staff some way or another, teaching staff is what I mean.
Yes.
If there's anything I can't stand more, it's more layers. and layers of middle management, layers of administration, layers, education system. I mean, our law has created so many layers on our poor teachers trying to just go through the checklist of everything they have to do. And I would really like to free up our teachers to be able to reach out to these children more easily and more effectively, in more layers and more programs and videos and all this other stuff. I don't think helps. And there's a ton of things I could sit here and talk about, but that's really not what I'm going to spend my time on today. I just don't like these contracts. I don't like the short-termness of them. I don't like the focus. It seems like the federal funds are driving the train rather than, the kids. And that's really the whole crux of the whole thing. Thank you for being here, though, and I appreciate you taking the time to always give us a very detailed explanation. And thank you, Dr. Sweeney, for coming, because we've talked about you a lot, but now we see you.
Yes, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to disapprove number 49, 70, and 71 in that series that we were just discussing, if there aren't any other questions, and then we can clean up the rest of these miscellaneous after that.
Do I understand that you do not want to include 51 in that? Because my concerns, 51 were pretty much the same as these other contracts.
Well, hang on a second. I didn't have 51 on the list. I don't mind if you want to amend that and make that motion. That's fine. I'm not sure exactly what 51 is.
Then the motion is to disapprove contracts 49, 51, 70, and 71.
I'll second it.
Is there a second?
Yes.
Second by Representative Hart. All those in favor of disapproving the contracts vote aye. All opposed vote no. Kim, please call the roll.
Senator Douglas.
Aye.
Senator Southworth.
Aye.
Senator Yates. Representative Bowling.
Yes.
Representative Hart.
Yes, and I'd also like to explain my vote. I want to echo the sentiment of Senator Douglas. I think the intent was well intended, but I believe we've lost the ability to ask our students and our teachers, what do you need to create a better educational atmosphere? That's my biggest concern about this. My wife's been a public school teacher for over 25 years, and the biggest complaint that I've heard her reiterate throughout her career is that all the burdensome type of programs they put on the teachers, instead of really asking them, what do you need to reach out and teach and educate your students, and more specifically, what do they need to teach reading, writing, arithmetic, or the subject matter that they were hired to teach. And so with that, I vote to disapprove.
Representative Mentor.
Briefly explain my vote, Mr. Chair.
Yes, please.
I vote no on disapproving these contracts, and I do want to thank you all. I represent a district that has 2 outstanding public school systems. We are also, by any metric you want to use, 2 of the most diverse systems in the Commonwealth. Warren County Public Schools, Bowling Green Independent Schools. Over 30 languages are spoken in our schools. We have some very wealthy students. We have some very poor students. And I appreciate that we have people who come in at different levels all over the place and move in and out of the system at all times. So I greatly appreciate your work to meet our students where they are, which I believe is the key to hitting all of these basics that my colleagues have pointed out are extremely important. But as an educator myself, I know that you have to meet people where they are before they can learn. And thank you for your work.
Representative Cook.
Aye.
Chairman Meredith.
Aye. Let's vote on that, Kim. 6-1. 6 ayes, 1 no. The motion to disapprove the contracts is approved. And again, always appreciate you all being in attendance. And it's evident that we have a philosophical difference. And I hope as we continue to have dialogue with each other and discussions that we can find that middle ground that we all need to work on. But I do appreciate you being here and sharing your thoughts with us and your opinions. Thank you very much. The next items on the pull list with Education and Labor Cabinet is number 99 on the routine MOA list.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
point of order.
Yes.
What are we doing with the rest of these contracts?
We've acted on those already.
We actually have number 50, 52,
Yeah, she's
61, and 62, and I can make a motion to approve, but I didn't know if you'd gotten your questions answered.
Yes, I did. I thought that was part of the previous, so I would accept your motion
Okay.
to approve those contracts. And what's the number again? Just make sure we're on the,
Motion to approve 50, 52, 61, and 62.
Yeah, second.
because there's a motion and a second to approve 50, 52, 61, and 62. All those in favor of the motion vote aye. All opposed vote no. Kim, please call the roll. We don't have those in there. So. We're just talking about these, but these are the ones that resigned. Oh, geez, 57, 60. Yes, please call the roll.
Senator Douglas.
Aye.
Senator Southworth.
Aye.
Senator Yates. Representative Bowling.
Yes.
Representative Hart.
Yes.
Representative Mentor.
Yes.
Representative Cook.
Yes.
Chairman Meredith.
Aye. Motion unanimously carries. That's the contracts again, 50, 52, 61, and 62. So, again, thank you for being available to us this morning. Yeah. Next item on the pull list are with the Education and Labor Cabinet are number 99 on the routine MOA pink list. Honestly, representatives are here. Good to see you gentlemen again. Just a matter of technicality, please identify yourself for the record.
Michael Bowman, Special Assistant to the Secretary of Education and Labor.
Orrin McFarland, Deputy General Counsel, Education Labor Cabinet.
Thank you again, gentlemen. Senator Southworth has questions.
Bless your heart, I didn't realize you were representing both. This is the Kentucky Chamber Foundation is apparently our vendor, it looks like. I want to get a better handle on the relationship because I'm sitting over here trying to swirl it around in my head. I know how this stuff works behind the curtains of closed doors or whatnot. So the Kentucky Chamber is got this foundation, which supposedly probably is a 501c3, I would assume, and they're doing work on their own. And we are contracting with them to do work for us, or the work that they do is because we contract with them, and so that is their work.
The Commonwealth benefits from a talent pipeline management system that the Chamber, which through a national organization of chambers across the country, have developed this program that does outreach to employers to provide statistics, data on the types of potential jobs that that an employer may have within a certain area. So the Kentucky Chamber has a program similar to that the Commonwealth uses that data. They provide that data to our KY Stats program as well as our Office of Employer and Apprenticeship Services. And we use that data to then make policy decisions based on what's needed in what industries. This particular program is specifically for 5 of our major industries in Kentucky: healthcare, construction, advanced manufacturing, IT and logistics, and I'm missing one.
I forget the other one as well, but are you saying that KY Stats does not independently collect that information, that the Chamber Foundation collects it and we contract to adopt what they've collected so that we shortcut our time on KY Stats? Is that
so?
fair?
This program was developed to be more expansive than what would typically be data that KY Stats would obtain. So this is where the Chamber uses their relationships with employers to forecast data that may not be required reporting from an employer. It's to build a cooperative amongst those industries so that there's kind of greater collaboration, greater cooperation, not just from the employer side, but also from the governmental side, so that we all are on the same page about what we need, where we're going, not only for those employers, but for our economy in terms of jobs.
Okay, thank you. So that does sound interesting. So we're basically buying data, essentially.
Effectively, the work that they do is to establish and maintain these collaboratives so that that data is compiled and then provided to us. So that's the benefit to the Commonwealth, is that we are able to expand beyond what would typically be required.
And this is probably an annual or a renewing type deal?
This program, this is going into the third year of this program. We established this 2 years ago. And like I said, we're going in for another year. We've used the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, the statewide reserve fund. Part of my role with the cabinet is to administer that fund, and that funding is specific for workforce development activities on a statewide level.
Is this it? I don't know, because this is an MOA. How that works with RFP type deal? Is this like a sole source? I'm assuming
since as a nonprofit sole source, they provide that service to the Commonwealth.
My only final question is, you mentioned nonprofit, and that's my concern here. You know, we all know what, shelters and shells all look like. And the chamber is a large lobbying presence here. And so where I get concerned is when we have different groups feeding each other, and the one we can't take money out of feeds it to someone else, and then we take money there, or we give money. You know what I'm saying? How do you explain how one of the largest lobbyists here has a right hand that we're paying, what, $700,000 or whatever?
So this, again, this program is an establishment of the Chamber's foundation. So they have two separate arms: the lobbying aspect, which you mentioned, which deals directly with actually approaching you all about policy changes that would benefit their clientele, which are the employers that buy into the chamber. The foundation does the actual work of developing the relationships between employers and ensuring that they have the resources to be able to do their work. So that is a significant governmental interest on our part, in that we want to understand where the jobs need to be, where they're going to be, and that kind of data is what this is intended to do. This is a program that the National Chamber instituted, and then our local chamber has done that through their nonprofit arm. I absolutely understand your point in terms of they clearly have clientele that are participating and have funding and resources that could potentially provide for this, and that is actually something the WIOA statewide reserve is intended as seed money, not a long-term sustainable source of funding. So our goal here is to build a program that then can be sustainable in other ways, whether that be through employer buy-in, where they actually provide it's kind of a proof of concept. We're ensuring that this works for Kentucky before all other parties can buy in.
Okay, so this isn't going to last forever necessarily, and what you're saying is that because we're paying them to give us their data so that they don't have to pay to come here and tell it to us through their lobbyists.
This goes, like I said, it's broader. It goes deeper than that. This is to build the relationships with specific industries that affect Kentucky's economy on a large scale. That is not something that is typically reported or required to be reported by employers. This allows us to build those types of relationships through the contacts that the chamber already has existing.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Co-Chair Cook, you have a question or comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to say, in the days of some of the lowest workforce participation we've had in my adult lifetime, how important the work that the Chamber and the Chamber Foundation are doing here. I've been involved in this, not with this specific project, but I've spoken. They put significant effort working in the thoroughbred industry and coming forward, working in equine and labor participation. What do we do? How do we improve the workforce? How do we get it out there? That work they're doing is absolutely invaluable. If we didn't have the businesses throughout Kentucky and we didn't have those jobs out there, there's no reason for us to be sitting up here in these seats, because the whole thing would be spiraling downhill. And this is a first line of defense to making sure that when CMWA is trying to hire 250 new people with their expansion, they're right up there and they're trying to get those jobs and find it in there. And I just can't say enough about what they're doing to keep the business of Kentucky moving forward. Thank you.
And Representative, as a note, the equine industry is actually a unique aspect of this particular program too. Not too many states actually have an industry as large as ours when it comes to equestrian equine management. So that is also a piece of this program that has been expanded on that's beyond what even the national model provides for.
60,000 jobs and been very much appreciated. We've had some meetings, Fezzik, Tipton, and Ford, and I believe they are making a difference. I know they're making a difference. I've seen this program working.
Was that a motion to approve? Is there a second? Second by Representative Mentor. All in favor of approval of the contract, vote aye. All opposed, vote no. Kim, please call the roll.
Senator Douglas.
Aye.
Senator Southworth.
Aye.
Senator Yates. Representative Bowling. Yes. Representative Hart.
Yes.
Representative Mentor.
Yes.
Representative Cook.
Yes.
Chairman Meredith.
Aye. Motion carries. And gentlemen, appreciate you being here this morning. Appreciate your time.
Thank you all.
Final item on the pulled list is Office of Energy Policy, and is number 103 on the routine MOA pink list. If representatives are here, please identify yourself for the record.
Hi, this is Lona Brewer, Deputy Executive Director of the Office of Energy Policy.
Are you solo today?
I believe I am.
All right. Well, Senator Southworth has questions. We appreciate you joining us. Senator Southworth.
Thank you. I was looking at this, and it looks like there's a couple of different things here, but one is seems like a focus on education to underserved communities, and the other is this pre-K curriculum. Can you speak on why the Office of Energy Policy is engaged in education materials only for those two groups?
One of the things that the Office of Energy Policy does is attempt to educate all sectors of our Commonwealth on energy efficiency and energy issues. The pre-K curriculum is one that that we try to bring focus to our youngest students, to just give them a general idea of energy and why they need energy and how they use energy. And that's the basis for that part of the project. We routinely provide education through various sectors for K through 12 students, as well as teachers, to be able to teach energy in the Commonwealth of Kentucky.
So are you all basically going to be, you end up paying for all the educational programming, or does this stuff all end up routing back through KDE, for example?
I'm sorry, I'm having trouble hearing you. I apologize.
This funding here, $60,000 to promote, it looks like workshops, libraries, and preschools. Is that money for educational purposes all just stay with your office, or is it going to end up routing back through around KDE or the KDLA or whatever?
No, this money does not funnel back to KDE. This money, we spend approximately $32,000 on the pre-K education piece, and we spend approximately $22,000 on the energy efficiency workshops in the Central Kentucky community. That includes coordination of the activities as well as some hands-on materials for each.
Is this a recurring thing that you do annually or every other year or so?
Pardon me? I'm sorry. I am having trouble hearing you this morning. I apologize.
The preschools, let's say, for example, you're only visiting, I think, 30 preschool classes.
Yes.
are we rotating every other year? We do more preschool classes, or I'm just trying to figure out how we're just picking a few preschools and it seems kind of hit and miss here.
It depends on the preschools who want to participate in the program.
Okay, so a preschool signs up and you all are paid by the state to go into this preschool, but other preschools that don't sign up don't have access to this, and they could maybe come up with things off your website or whatever to teach their little kids? Yes,
any teacher within the service territory can sign up for these projects. If I look back at the 2 or 3 years that we've been funding this, it's various schools, and some of them teach different aspects of the pre-K curriculum.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, just a final comment. Sometimes I don't know what to do with some of these things. You know, it's nice to have guest speakers come into your preschool, but I'm trying to figure out if that's necessarily a $60,000 priority of state funds, and if that's, we might not be doing this right. I don't exactly know what to do with contracts like this. I just want to register my concern. We're kind of piecemeal around here.
I share it with you, but obviously if it's coming from the federal government, you know it's got to be good, right? Yeah. You know, no, seriously, I share your concern. But, you know, if 60,000 is out there that a school district wants to take advantage of it and sees a role for it, then it's available to them, and we can't make that decision for them. It is federal funds, but it boggles my mind, but it's the best answer I can give you. Any other questions, comments? Not entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion by Representative Bowling, seconded by Co-Chair Cook. All those in favor of the motion vote aye. All opposed vote. Kim, please call the roll.
Senator Douglas.
I vote aye, but may I explain my vote?
Most certainly.
I vote aye on this, but you know, when I was younger and we were writing on papyrus paper, we had some of the local some of the local energy providers come to our schools, and they weren't being supported by federal funds and or state funds. The other thing I would echo what you said, Chairman Meredith, about you know, it's federal money that's being provided, and I think that's something that probably some of our legislators at the federal level might want to listen to at times. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Southworth.
Aye.
Senator Yates. Representative Bowling.
Yes.
Representative Hart.
Yes.
Representative Mentor.
Yes.
Representative Cook.
Yes.
Chairman Meredith.
No. Motion carries. Contract is approved. Final item on the agenda are consideration of 3 exemption requests by the Energy and Environmental Cabinet, and these are rather routine. It's because expenses go beyond the biennium, and they need approval for that purpose. So I entertain a motion on all 3 requests.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Co-Chair Cook, seconded by Representative Mentor. All in favor of providing the exemption, say aye. All opposed, vote no. Kim, please call the roll.
Senator Douglas.
Aye.
Senator Southworth.
Aye.
Senator Yates. Representative Bowling.
Yes.
Representative Hart.
Yes.
Representative Mentor.
Yes.
Representative Cook.
Yes.
Chairman Meredith.
Aye, motion carries. Before we adjourn, first, thanks everyone for being here and participating today. But our next meeting date, put it on your calendar, Tuesday, September 13th at 9 o'clock a.m. in this room. So thank you. Have a blessed day. We stand adjourned.